Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I want to talk about my spring TBR. I want to talk about the books that I really want to try to get to during the spring. So I have 13 books in front of me that I would like to share with you. With the exception of one, these are the books that have been sitting on my shelves for quite some time that I haven't gotten around to reading, but I do intend on reading them this spring. And the reason why I chose this spring is because some of these have flowers on the cover, some of these revolve around a wedding. Some of these just give me the spring vibe just based solely on the cover. So I could be wrong. I don't officially know if these are actually based around the springtime. They just give me the spring feels just by looking at the cover. Before we get into the video, please, if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. That way you never miss another one of my videos. For the bulk of this TBR, of course, we have a bunch of romance because who doesn't want to read romances in the springtime or any time of the year, to be honest with you. I have a literary fiction, I have a historical fiction, I have a cozy fantasy, I have a magical realism, and I have 2 thrillers. So I'm super excited to share these with you. Also, I have to say that I'm very proud of myself because with the exception of one, like I said earlier in the video, all of these have been sitting on my TBR or on my bookshelves for quite some time. I've owned these for over a year or more. So that makes me feel proud that I'm actually chipping away at my really large physical TBR that you see in the background right here. Another thing too to keep in mind is that most of these are second books in the series that I've already started, whether it was a year or 2 ago, that I want to continue on with the series and possibly finish the series if it's only a trilogy this year. Okay, let's get started because I feel like I have been talking too much and I haven't shared enough with you. Okay, so the first book I want to talk about is the second book in the Knock 'em Out series, and that is Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score. I really enjoyed Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score, so I want to follow it up with this book, which is the second book in the series. This one follows the police chief of the small town, Nash, and Lena Solavita. I honestly don't remember. I believe Nash is the brother of the first book in the series, and I really don't remember who Lena is. Honestly, I haven't read Things We Never Got Over for so long. I think it's been 2 years, so I have no idea. I know that this series in particular is a small town series, and I think there's 3 books in the series so far. This is Nash, the police chief of the town, is a good boy, and the bad girl is Lena. Police Chief Nash Morgan is known for 2 things: being a good guy and the way his uniform insinuates his butt. 2 bullets put a dent in the Southern charm, but thankfully spared his particular rear end. He's got his hands full with a man who shot him still on the loose, healing wounds and citizens that think of the law as more of a guideline. Throw in the gloomy mood that clings to him, and the last thing he needs is a smart-mouthed, gorgeous new neighbor making him feel things he doesn't have the energy to feel. Lena Solavita has her reasons for being in town. She's on a mission, and the fewer people that find out about it, the better. She does her best work alone. As soon as she finds what she's after, she's hitting the road for the next solo adventure. Too bad the town of Knock 'em Out has other ideas. Soon Lena finds herself sucked in a small town life. Dog sitting, saying yes to a bridesmaid's dress, listening to a sexy AF chief of police service himself in the shower. But when Nash finds out why she's there, flirty friends become furious enemies. The sparks flying don't know the difference between lust and hate. When danger forces them together, it's only a matter of time before they get burned. So this is close proximity because they're neighbors. I love that. I love that trope. There's also probably going to be some banter because she's a little bit feisty and he's the nice guy. He's the golden retriever. So I can't wait to read it. There's also a mystery that happened in the first book that kind of follows along in this book and continues. So there's a little bit of a mystery aspect, and it also says a bridesmaid's dress, which I'm assuming there's going to be a wedding involved, which for me, I think nothing screams spring more than just a wedding itself, to be honest with you. The next book I want to read is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is the first book in the series. I don't know what the series is called. I think it's called the Brown Sisters series, but this is the first book in the series that follows 3 sisters and their romances, and I want to read all of her books in this series because I've heard they're great. The banter is amazing. They're just fun reads. I don't know if this is set in the springtime, but I still want to read it because I've been dying to get through this series for quite some time now. Chloe Brown is a chronically ill computer geek with a goal, a plan, and a list. After almost but not quite dying, she's come up with 7 directives to help her get a life, and she's already completed the first, finally moving out of her glamorous family's mansion. The next items: enjoy a drunken night out, ride a bicycle, go go camping, have meaningless but thoroughly enjoyable sex, travel the world with nothing but hand luggage, and do something bad. But it's not easy being bad when you've written step-by-step guidelines on how to do it correctly. What Chloe needs is a teacher, and she knows just the man for the job. Redford, the handyman with tattoos and motorcycle and more sex appeal than 10,000 Hollywood heartthrobs. He's also an artist who paints at night and hides his work in the light of day, which Chloe knows because she spies on him occasionally, just the teeniest, tiniest bit. But when she enlists Red in her mission to rebel, she learns things about him that no spy session could teach her, like why he clearly resents Chloe's wealthy background and why he never shows her to anyone and why he really lies beneath his rough exterior. I can't wait to read this. I'm super excited. That's pretty much all I want to say about it. I know that Talia Hibbert's books, especially this series, are well known and people love them, so I can't wait to dive in and see if I feel the same way. This is the second book in the series, and it's the Love Light Farms series. I read Love Light Farms, I think it was last year. Yeah, I read Love Light Farms last year. It's a small town Christmas romance, so I read that book. Now I'm moving on to the next book, and I've heard this little mini series. I think it's a trilogy, if I'm not mistaken. It's just really good, so I can't wait to get to this one. That is In the Weeds by B.K. Borison. This one I think is a small town rom-com, sweet and steamy second chance romance about finding your happiness. It features a grumpy farmer, a no-nonsense social media influencer, and a small town of busybodies and 4 very cute kittens. I mean, look at this. Doesn't this scream spring? I mean, for me, it does. Or maybe, I don't know, the fall because of the fallish colors. But nonetheless, I really want to read this. I really enjoyed Love Light Farms, and I know this is going to be a good time too. Next book I want to talk about, I'm pretty sure everybody and their moms has read it besides me. I'm not even sure this takes place in the springtime, but there is a wedding involved, so I'm up for it this spring. The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. I've heard mixed reviews about this. Some people really love it. Some people didn't really like it. Ever since Love and Other Words, I've heard mixed reviews on these authors, but to me, I don't know until I read it myself and have my own opinions, so I'm actually very excited to dive into this one. For 2 sworn enemies on the Hawaiian trip of a lifetime, anything can happen, maybe even love in this romantic comedy. Olive Taurus is used to being the unlucky twin. From inexplicable mishaps to a recent layoff, her life seems to be almost comically jinxed. By contrast, her sister Amy is an eternal champion. She even managed to finance her entire wedding by winning a slew of contests. Unfortunately for Olive, the only thing worse than constant bad luck is having to spend the wedding day with the best man and her nemesis, Ethan Thomas. Olive braces herself for a wedding hell, determined to put on a brave face, but when the entire wedding party gets food poisoning, the only people who aren't affected are Olive and Ethan. Suddenly, there's a free honeymoon up for grabs, and Olive will be damned if Ethan gets to enjoy paradise solo. That's all I'm going to read. That sounds like such a great time because they're in Hawaii. It's based around a wedding. Their enemies, it's going to be an enemies to lovers, forced proximity because they're going to be sharing a hotel room together. Sounds perfect. The next book I want to read is another one that is based around a wedding, and that is The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. I want to read this one so bad, not only because I've heard such great things about it, but also because I want to really read the second book, which I think is called The Roommate Experiment. And anything that has to do with roommates, forced proximity, I eat up like no other. I love those tropes, so I really want to get to this one so I can move on to the next one. And I think this one is a faked dating trope. It says, a wedding in Spain, an infuriating man, 3 days to convince her family she's actually in love. And that's pretty much all I really want to say and read about this book. I'm excited to read it. I love that it takes place in Spain. Just the cover is so beautiful. Look at this cover. Pretending to be in love never felt better. Everything you could want in a romance is right here. And that was said by Helen Hong, the best-selling author of The Heart Principle, which is also on my list that I haven't gotten to yet. Next book is actually the first book in a series. I read the second book last year in February because it was Valentine's themed, and that was X's and O's. And this one is actually the first book in that series, and that is Set on You by Amy Lee. This is part of, I think it's a trilogy. It's called the Influencer series. So it basically follows different types of influencers. The last one followed a bookstagrammer, a booktuber, I think, and this one follows a fitness influencer. And I just think the whole synopsis of this is so funny, and the whole concept of how these two met is so funny. A gym nemesis nemesis pushes a fitness influencer to the max in Amy Lee's steamy debut romantic comedy. Curvy fitness influencer Crystal Chen built her career by shattering gym stereotypes and mostly ignoring the trolls. After her recent breakup, she has little stamina left for men, instead finding solace in the gym, her place of power and positivity. Enter firefighter Scott Ritchie, the smug new gym patron who routinely steals her favorite squat rack. Sparks fly as these ultra-competitive foes battle for gym domination. So they literally met on bad terms because he just kept taking over her squat rack. Like, how funny is that? What a way to meet somebody. I can't wait to read it. I really enjoyed the X's and O's. This one also is probably gonna have, yep, it has text messages and Instagram posts, so I'm excited. This book that I'm gonna share with you is the only recent release that I got, and that was, I think, a release from, I think it was like February's release for Book of the Month. That is Happily Ever After by Lynn Painter. I own a few of Lynn Painter's books, and every time I read one, I absolutely love them. I haven't read one of her adult ones yet, but I own several. I want to start with this one. This one, I think, it's about two wedding crashers that decide to work together to crash people's wedding to make money. I think that's what this one's about. Their name, the objectors, their job to break up weddings as hired. Their dilemma, they just might be in love with each other. When Sophie Steinbach finds out just before her nuptials that her fiance has cheated yet again, she desperately wants to call it off. But because her future father-in-law is also her dad's cutthroat boss, she can't be the one to do it. Her savior comes in the form of a professional objector whose purpose is to show up at weddings and proclaim the words no couple usually wants to hear at their ceremony. I object! During anti-wedding festivities that night, Sophie learns more about Max, the objector's job. It makes perfect sense to her. He saves people from wasting their lives, from hurting each other. He's a modern-day hero, and Sophie wants in. The two love cynics start working together, going from wedding to wedding, and Sophie's having more fun than she's had in ages. She looks forward to every nerve-wracking ceremony where they save the lovesick souls of the betrothed masses. That's pretty much all I'm going to read. It looks like they decide to work together, they spend some time together, they get to know each other, and they fall in love. I'm excited. This one's a very short one too. Let me see. It's only 275 pages, and if I'm not mistaken, yep, you get dual POV, you get his point of view and hers, which I love. I'm excited. I can't wait. Now we're moving on to the only literary fiction book that I have. I absolutely love this cover, and the reason why I bought it is because of the cover and also because of what it's about. That is Pineapple Street by Jenny Jackson. This one, all I know that it's about a rich, ritzy family that live in Manhattan and rich people drama. That's basically it. I think it follows three sisters, if I'm not mistaken. I think it follows three sisters or the daughters of this wealthy family. I don't know. I just heard really great things. I heard that the humor in here is funny. Who doesn't want to read a great story about rich people drama? The next book I want to read is the only historical fiction book that I have on this list, and I'm trying to slowly get through this author's books. I own a lot of them and I've only read one because I'm such a chicken, because all of her books tend to break me. Even though I've only read one, I know that all of her books are solely based on just trauma and tragic events, you know, tragic historical events that people had to go through in the past. And so I know that I kind of pace myself when reading her books, but I know that they're such great, impactful reads that I have to just force myself to read them. I have one already on this month's TBR. After I read that one, the next one I want to read is The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. And this one has won so many awards. It was the book of the year in 2021. It is such a beautiful, tragic, sad book, but I've heard really, really great things. I don't think this has got anything to do with springtime, but just the cover drew to me, and I know that this is the next book I want to read off of her list. A powerful American epic about love and heroism and hope, set during the Great Depression, a time when the country was in crisis, when millions were out of work and even the land seemed to have turned against them. My land tells its story if you listen, the story of our family. And that's pretty much all I wanted going into it. I know it's going to crush me, but I know it's going to be such an impactful read. I can't wait. Next book I want to read is a cozy fantasy, and I'm pretty sure everybody has read this book, but I haven't, and that is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I've heard that TJ Klune's books are emotional, impactful, they're just thought-provoking. This one is obviously the first one. The next book in this series is Under Whispering Door, and this one's about an orphanage of magical children and a social worker who is sent to check up on them and see if they're taken care of. I think there's a romance between the social worker and the person that runs the orphanage, if I'm not mistaken, but I've heard that this is like a warm hug. I've heard this book gives you so many emotional and warm, cozy feelings. I've heard that the children make the bulk of this book and they're just phenomenal. So I can't wait to read it. A Magical Island, a Dangerous Task, a Burning Secret. That's pretty much all I want to know getting into it. I can't wait to read it and see how I feel and have this book impact me in a way that it has other people. The next book I want to read is A Magical Realism. I absolutely love reading magical realism. I love just the way that the authors write, solely based off of that genre that really intrigues me and just hooks me from the beginning. And that is Wayward by Amelia Hart. Look at this cover. Isn't this the most beautiful springy cover you've ever seen? If this book is not based off of some type of spring or the spring season, I'm telling you right now, you fooled me with the cover. This one, I believe, follows 3 generations of witches that are going through different things in their lives. I think it's historical as well. It also follows 3 different times: 2019, 1619, and 1942, where you could just only imagine what these women were going through during those specific different times of history. So that's pretty much all I know about it. I've heard really great things, and again, I can't wait to pick it up. It's been sitting on my shelf looking at me for quite some time now. The last 2 books I want to talk about in this video would be 2 thrillers that I have. Now, this next one I want to talk about, I haven't really liked this author's books. I've only read 2, but I know that she does very good atmospheric vibes when it comes to writing her books. I believe most of her books are set in the small town in Nantucket. They're always set at a beach. It's just a vibe. The next book I want to read from her is The Perfect Couple by Ellen Hilderbrand, and this is your typical whodunit mystery thriller about obviously a couple. The perfect couple about to have the perfect wedding until a shocking discovery reveals that nothing is as good as it seems. I have mixed feelings about Ellen Hilderbrand. I don't know what it is about her writing that people love so much, and I respect that, but for me, it just doesn't work. A lot of her writing to me is very prolonged and slow. Some of the things that she writes about with her characters are just things that I'm not really interested in following. Like, I don't really care about certain characters. Sometimes she does put a lot of characters in her books as well, but I'm giving her a chance because I bought this a long time ago and it's been sitting on my shelf and I've been wanting to read it. I mean, you can tell, I guess you can't really tell, but the pages of her book, since I've owned it for so long, are yellow. Like, it's an older book, okay? I've owned this book for quite some time. I just can't wait to read it. I know it's gonna be set in Nantucket wedding season in front of a beach. There's a murder that's gonna happen. The people from the wedding are probably one of the ones that did it. I don't know. I'm excited. I can't wait to read it. I will be giving her another chance and we'll see. This is either gonna make it or break it. I have one more book from her and that's The Weekenders. The Weekend that came out a year or 2 ago, which I will read because I own it, but hopefully this one hooks me. And the last book in this list would have to be, I'm assuming, about a turmoil marriage, and I love thrillers that are based solely on crumbling marriages or somebody trying to get in between a marriage or something like that. I just feel like that intrigues me so much. Just the whole concept of having to be able to trust your spouse and knowing that you can't because of certain circumstances is so scary to me. So scary. So that is The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. I've heard great things about this one, but I don't know. I think it takes place in a really ritzy neighborhood. There's a dog walker that works for the married couple or something like that. Which Mrs. Rochester will get her happy ending? Rachel Hawkins delivers a sharp, fresh twist on a classic in this darkly funny, suspenseful story of murder, ambition, and love. A debut thriller that puts you in the steps of an outsider, an insider, and an imposter, but which is which? You won't know until you're up way too late turning the final pages. That just sounds so good. Okay, it says, a vivid reimagining of one of literature's most twisted love triangles. Oh, Which is what? Meet Jane. Newly arrived in Birmingham, Alabama, Jane is a broke dog walker in Thornfield Estates, a gated community full of McMansions, shiny SUVs, and bored housewives. The kind of place where no one will notice if Jane lifts the discarded tchotchkes and jewelry off the side tables of her well-heeled clients, where no one will think to ask if Jane is even her real name. Meet Eddie. Recently widowed, he has become Thornfield Estates' most mysterious resident ever since his wife Bee drowned in a boating accident with her best friend, their bodies lost in the deep. Jane can't help but see an opportunity in Eddie. Not only is he rich, brooding, and handsome, but he could also offer her the kind of protection she craves. Yet, as the two fall for each other, Jane is haunted by the legend of Bee, an ambitious beauty and successful entrepreneur with rags to riches origin story. How can she, plain Jane, ever measure up? And can Jane win Eddie's heart before her past or his catches up with her? Ooh, it's about secrets, and he could be possibly the murderer of his wife and her best friend. I don't know. It says a classic. A vivid reimagining of literature's most twisted love triangles. What does that mean? What is the reimagining? Okay, this is a compulsive, irresistible retelling of Jane Eyre with a modern noir twist, and wow, does it work. Okay, perfect. I have Jane Eyre on my bookshelf in my classic section, so I can't wait to read that one either. I'm excited. This has been sitting again in my shelf for quite some time, so I'm really excited to get to it this spring. All right, guys, so there you have it. Those are all the books that I would love to read in the spring this year. I hope I can get to them on top of my TBR every month, but we'll see. Fingers crossed. So there you have it. That's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and I will catch you on my next one. Bye!